You wake up tomorrow morning. Let's say it's 6:47. The alarm went off, you silenced it, maybe you grabbed your phone for a second, maybe you didn't. You swing your legs over the side of the bed. And in the first 5 minutes of your day, before you've decided anything consciously, your body is already running a sequence, a biological sequence, that's been running in human beings for hundreds of thousands of years. Your heart rate is climbing. Your body temperature is rising, and your stomach, that muscular, acid-filled pouch sitting in the upper left corner of your abdomen, it's already awake, already active, already waiting. And the question is, what are you going to give it first? Now, I want to be honest with you right from the start. This is not going to be one of those videos where someone tells you to drink warm lemon water and add some piano music and calls it science. I find that kind of content genuinely frustrating because the actual biology of what happens to your stomach in the morning is so much more interesting than warm lemon water. What I want to do today is walk you through what is literally happening inside your gut when you wake up. The hormones, the acid chemistry, the 38 trillion microorganisms that are living in your digestive tract right now and waiting to be fed. And then based on all of that, the answer to the question in this video's title is going to feel completely obvious to you, not because I said so, but because you'll understand why. That's the kind of knowledge that actually sticks. When you know the reason behind the rule, you never forget the rule. And this one particular reason, once you understand it, changes how you look at your entire morning. So let's build it from the ground up. The first thing I want to tell you about is something called the cortisol awakening response. Now, you've probably heard of cortisol before. It's usually called the stress hormone, which is accurate but a little bit misleading, because people hear stress hormone and immediately think it's something bad, something to suppress. It's not. Cortisol is essential. It mobilizes energy, it regulates inflammation, it prepares your immune system, it makes you alert and functional. You can't live without it. Here's what happens in your body every single morning. In the 30 to 45 minutes after you wake up, your cortisol levels spike by somewhere between 38 and 75%. That data comes from decades of research, studies by researchers like Stefan V. and Clemens Kurzbaum, who spent years characterizing this response. It's called the cortisol awakening response, and it is one of the sharpest, most reproducible hormonal shifts in the entire 24-hour cycle. It happens every morning without exception in about 77% of healthy adults. It happens whether you slept well or badly, whether you're stressed or relaxed, whether it's a Monday or a Saturday.
Now, why does this matter for your stomach? Because cortisol doesn't just wake up your brain, it activates your entire digestive system. It stimulates gastric acid secretion. It triggers the enteric nervous system, which I'll explain in a moment, to increase activity. It signals your gut, we're awake, the day has started, prepare for incoming. But here's the part that most people completely miss, and this is the part I really want you to hold on to. Cortisol, when it stays elevated for too long, suppresses the mucus layer that lines your stomach wall. Let me explain what that mucus layer actually does, because it is not a trivial thing. Your stomach produces hydrochloric acid with a pH somewhere between 1.5 and 3.5. To give you a frame of reference, lemon juice is around pH 2. Battery acid is pH 0. Your fasting stomach in the morning is sitting at a level of acidity that is genuinely extraordinary, and it's supposed to be there. That acidity kills pathogens. It activates the enzymes that break down proteins. It ionizes minerals so your small intestine can absorb them. The acid is essential. But the only thing standing between that acid and the actual cellular wall of your stomach is the mucus layer, that protective coating, that buffer, and cortisol suppresses it. So in the morning, your cortisol is naturally at its peak of the day, and your protective stomach lining is under the most metabolic stress it experiences in any 24-hour period. This is your baseline every morning before you put anything in your mouth at all. And then a lot of people pick up a coffee. I'm going to come back to coffee in detail a little later because it's a complicated topic and I don't want to oversimplify it. But for now, here's what you need to know. Caffeine directly stimulates the release of cortisol. This has been demonstrated in multiple studies. And when you drink coffee in that first 30 to 45 minutes after waking, when your cortisol is already spiking from the cortisol awakening response, you are adding a second cortisol stimulus on top of the first. You are stacking spikes cortisol on top of cortisol, which means the suppression of your protective stomach lining intensifies, and you've added an
acidic beverage, coffee has a pH around 4 to 5, directly into a stomach that is already at maximum acid concentration with a compromised protective coating and no food to buffer it. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman has pointed out in his research communications that the ideal timing for caffeine is 90 to 120 minutes after waking, specifically to avoid exactly this cortisol stacking mechanism. Now, is 90 minutes realistic for everyone every day? Maybe not, but understanding why that timing matters is different from just knowing the rule. Once you see the mechanism, you can make an informed choice. That's what I'm after today. Let me now talk about the actual chemistry of your empty stomach, because I think it's genuinely remarkable and I think most people have never thought about it. While you sleep, your stomach empties. The food from dinner has been processed, moved through, metabolized over the course of 7 or 8 hours. By the time you wake up, your stomach is essentially clean, and the gastric acid sitting in it is at full concentration, pH 1.5 to 3.5. Now, your stomach has been managing this acid safely because of that mucus layer, because of the bicarbonate your stomach secretes to neutralize acid near the wall, and because the stomach lining cells themselves have a very short lifespan. They replace themselves roughly every 3 to 5 days, which is one of the fastest cellular replacement rates in the body. The system is engineered to handle the acid, but the system is engineered to handle it when it functions properly, when the protective elements are intact and supported.
Now here's where the warm water comes in, and this is one of those things that sounds almost too simple to be real, but the biology behind it is actually quite elegant. When you drink warm water first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, several things happen. The water dilutes the most concentrated surface layer of fasting gastric acid. It stimulates your stomach walls to produce fresh mucus, essentially replenishing the protective lining. It activates peristalsis, which is the rhythmic, wave-like muscle contractions that move material through your digestive tract, and it rehydrates your entire digestive system after 7 or 8 hours of no fluid intake. There's a study worth knowing about, published in the World Journal of Gastroenterology, showing that warm water specifically enhanced gastric motility compared to cold water. Subjects had measurably better gastric emptying rates and reported less digestive sluggishness. The temperature matters because warm fluid relaxes the smooth muscle of the digestive tract in a way that cold fluid doesn't. Cold water can actually trigger a mild vasoconstrictive response in the gut, temporarily reducing blood flow to digestive tissue. Warm water does the opposite. Think about it this way. Your digestive system has been in a kind of overnight maintenance mode for 8 hours. You wouldn't try to cold start a high-performance engine and immediately push it to maximum load. You warm it up first, let it find its operating temperature, let the fluids circulate. Water is the warm-up your digestive system has been running without every morning. The dehydration piece is also not trivial. Your body loses between half a liter and a full liter of water overnight just through breathing and normal perspiration. You wake up mildly dehydrated every single day. And your digestive enzymes, the proteins that chemically break down food, they require water as a medium to function. An enzyme in a dehydrated environment is like a surgeon trying to operate with no lighting. The tools are there, the skill is there, the conditions are wrong. 1 to 2 glasses of water, warm or room temperature, before anything else, before coffee, before food, before checking your messages. This is not a wellness trend, it is a basic act of biological support. Now I want to spend real time on the microbiome, because I think this is where the morning nutrition conversation really comes alive, and I think it's the part that most people have either never heard or haven't heard explained in a way that actually lands. In your gastrointestinal tract, right now, you are carrying approximately 38 trillion microbial cells. That number comes from a landmark study published in 2016 by Ron Sander-Schonder-Fuchs and Ron Milo, researchers at the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel. They published their findings first in Cell, then in POS Biology. And what they showed is that the old estimate of 10 bacterial cells for every 1 human cell was wrong. The real ratio is much closer to 1 to 1, about 38 trillion bacterial cells alongside roughly 30 trillion human cells. You
You are, by cell count, approximately half human and half microbial, and the vast majority of those microbial cells live in your large intestine. These are not passengers, they are not hitchhikers. They are running metabolic processes that you cannot run without them. They synthesize vitamin K. They produce several B vitamins, including B12 precursors. They ferment dietary fiber and produce short-chain fatty acids that fuel the cells lining your colon. They regulate the development and calibration of your immune system. About 70% of your immune cells live in the immune tissue that lines your gastrointestinal tract, and they produce neurotransmitters, including about 90 to 95% of your body's total serotonin. I want to stop on that number for a moment because I think it lands differently when you really hear it. 90 to 95% of your serotonin is produced in your gut, not your brain, your gut. The cells that make it are called enterochromaffin cells, and they line the interior of your digestive tract, and their activity is directly influenced by the health of your gut microbiome. This means that when people talk about mood, about mental clarity, about the feeling of sustained focus, or the feeling of inexplicable fog, the gut is in that conversation. It is not separate from the conversation. Now, let me tell you about some of the specific members of this microbial community, because they are individual organisms with individual functions and individual nutritional preferences, and understanding who they are makes the morning feeding question much more concrete. Lactobacillus and bifidobacterium are the most studied beneficial bacteria in the gut. You've seen these names on probiotic bottles. They ferment certain types of fiber, produce lactic acid, and create a chemical environment that is hostile to pathogenic bacteria. Decades of clinical research have linked higher populations of these bacteria with improved digestive regularity, reduced antibiotic-associated illness, and modulation of immune responses. Akkermansia muciniphila is one that has attracted a lot of research attention in the last 10 years. It lives specifically in the mucus layer of your gut, the same mucus layer we talked about before, and it feeds on mucus components as its energy source. This sounds counterintuitive. You'd think that would erode the lining, but what actually happens is that Akkermansia's activity stimulates your gut to continuously produce new, fresh mucus. It's like a maintenance crew that causes renovation by being present. Research from Patrice Carney's laboratory at UC Leuven in Belgium has associated higher Akkermansia abundance with lower rates of metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, and obesity. Faelobacterium prausnitzii is perhaps the most important gut bacteria that most people have never heard the name of. It is one of the most abundant species in healthy human guts and one of the primary producers of butyrate, a short-chain fatty acid that is the main energy source for your colonocytes, which are the cells that line your colon. Butyrate reduces inflammation, strengthens the gut barrier, and has shown anti-tumor properties in cell studies in people with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Faelobacterium prausnitzii is almost always found at dramatically reduced populations. Its presence is not decorative, it is structural. All of these organisms, all 38 trillion of them, need to be fed. Like any living population, they have nutritional needs, they have feeding cycles, and they respond to what they receive. After an 8-hour overnight fast, they have been running on reserves, and the first meal you eat in the morning is the first feeding of this entire ecosystem since dinner the night before. So the question becomes very specific. What do they eat? They eat fermentable fiber, specifically prebiotic fiber, fiber that your human digestive enzymes cannot break down, but that your gut bacteria ferment and metabolize. Fructooligosaccharides found in garlic, onions, and leeks. Beta-glucan found in oats and barley. Inulin found in chicory root and Jerusalem artichokes. Pectin found in apples and pears. Resistant starch found in slightly underripe bananas, in legumes, in potatoes that have been cooked and then cooled. When these fibers reach your large intestine, the bacteria ferment them, and the fermentation produces short-chain fatty acids, butyrate, propionate, and acetate primarily. Butyrate fuels your colonocytes. Propionate travels to the liver and participates in glucose regulation. Acetate enters general circulation and influences appetite signaling in the brain. You eat the fiber, your bacteria eat the fiber. The bacteria produce the compounds that keep your colon healthy, your blood sugar stable, and your appetite modulated. The whole cascade runs from a single breakfast choice.
Now, before I tell you what the morning should look like, I want to spend time on what most people are actually doing and why it's working against them. The standard modern breakfast in America looks something like this. Alarm goes off, reach for the coffee maker, maybe a glass of orange juice, a bowl of sweetened cereal, or a pastry or a bagel. Another coffee by 9. This is so normal that it barely registers as a set of decisions. It's just what morning looks like. And from a biological standpoint, almost every element of it is creating a problem. We covered coffee already, but orange juice? Let's talk about orange juice for a second, because I think this one surprises people. A standard glass of commercial orange juice, 240 to 480 milliliters, contains approximately 21 to 26 grams of sugar. That is roughly the same sugar load as a can of soda. It has essentially no fiber because the fiber was removed when the juice was extracted. On an empty stomach with nothing else to buffer it, that sugar hits your bloodstream fast. Your pancreas responds with a surge of insulin. Blood glucose rises sharply and then drops sometimes below baseline in what's called reactive hypoglycemia. That drop is the mid-morning energy crash that millions of people experience every day and treat with another cup of coffee. You are not tired because you didn't sleep enough. You are tired because you spiked and crashed your blood sugar at 7:30 in the morning. Whole oranges are fine. The whole fruit's fiber matrix changes everything. It slows absorption, blunts the glucose response, extends the energy curve. A whole orange has a glycemic index around 35 to 45. Orange juice, stripped of its fiber, sits at 50 to 65. The fiber is not incidental to the orange. The fiber is the point.
Sweetened breakfast cereals are a separate issue worth addressing directly. From a metabolic standpoint, the majority of commercial breakfast cereals are essentially candy that has been packaged to look like nutrition. Most contain between 10 and 25 grams of added sugar per cup. Most have 1 to 3 grams of protein, almost nothing, and the grain fiber in most highly processed cereals provides minimal prebiotic benefit to the microbiome because the processing has already broken down the fiber structures. You are spiking your blood sugar, providing almost no amino acids to your muscles when they are most ready to use them, and feeding pathogenic sugar-preferring bacteria rather than the beneficial fiber-fermenting species. I don't think the people eating this stuff are making a bad decision deliberately. They're making a cultural default in an environment that hasn't given them the information to make a different one. That's what we're fixing today. Let me now bring in a dimension of this that I find genuinely fascinating: the circadian angle. Every cell in your body contains a molecular clock. This is not a metaphor. There are actual clock genes, clock BAL1, PER1, PER2, CRY1, that regulate the timing of metabolic processes at the cellular level. And this discovery was considered important enough that the 2017 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine was awarded to Jeffrey Hall, Michael Rosbash, and Michael Young specifically for their work in elucidating the molecular mechanisms of these circadian clocks. This is Nobel Prize level science. Your digestive organs each run on their own version of this clock. Your liver, which manages blood glucose and processes bile acids, is most metabolically active in the morning. Your pancreas, which releases insulin in response to carbohydrates, is most insulin sensitive in the morning hours, meaning the same amount of carbohydrate eaten at 8 in the morning produces a smaller blood sugar spike than the same amount eaten at 8 at night. That is not theoretical. That has been measured in controlled clinical settings, including research from Frank Shear's lab at Harvard Medical School, looking at the metabolic consequences of circadian misalignment. And your intestinal motility, the movement of material through your bowel, follows a circadian peak. Research from Sachin Panda's laboratory at the Salk Institute has been instrumental in mapping these rhythms. Panda and his colleagues published a study in Cell Metabolism in 2019, led by Michael Wilkinson and Emily Manoogian, that followed 19 adults with metabolic syndrome through a 3-month intervention of 10-hour time-restricted eating. These were people who had been eating across 14 hours or more per day, a common modern pattern, and who were mostly already on medications for their conditions. They didn't change what they ate, they only changed the window during which they ate, compressing it to 10 hours aligned with daytime hours. Without changing calories, without changing food composition, they showed measurable reductions in body weight, blood pressure, total cholesterol,
LDL particle count, and blood glucose. The mechanism isn't magic, it's alignment. When you eat during the hours when your metabolic machinery is at peak performance, the same food is handled more efficiently. And this connects directly to the morning. Your pancreas is most insulin sensitive when you wake up. Your liver is primed and ready to handle nutrients. Your digestive enzyme output from the pancreas and the gallbladder is highest in the morning and early afternoon. The entire digestive apparatus is cocked and ready. Eating in the morning is not something you force your body to do. It's something your body has been preparing for since before you opened your eyes. There's also something called the second meal effect, first described by Dr. David Jenkins at the University of Toronto, the same researcher who created the glycemic index. What Jenkins found is that the fiber composition of your first meal actually changes how your body handles carbohydrates in your second meal hours later. When you eat soluble fiber at breakfast, the kind that forms a gel in your digestive tract, it slows gastric emptying. It creates a more gradual absorption curve, and the downstream effects on insulin and blood glucose extend into your next meal. The breakfast you eat is shaping your metabolic response at lunch. This effect is not small. It's been replicated in multiple clinical settings. The first meal of the day genuinely sets the metabolic tone for everything that follows.
Now I want to tell you specifically, and I mean specifically, what your stomach should receive first every morning. Not a general guideline, actual elements. First, water. Warm or room temperature, 300 to 500 milliliters before anything else. Before coffee, before food. Not alkaline water, not detox water, not any product. Water. The reasons have been laid out. Rehydrates your digestive tissue. Stimulates mucus production, activates peristalsis, dilutes the most concentrated surface layer of fasting acid. 3 minutes, free. Do it first. Second, delay your coffee. I know that's hard to hear for a lot of people. I understand, but the mechanism is real. Wait at minimum 30 to 45 minutes for the cortisol awakening response to peak and begin declining. Ideally, wait 90 minutes. If that's a bridge too far on a Tuesday, wait 45 minutes. Even that adjustment meaningfully reduces the cortisol stacking effect. And have your coffee with or after food, not before it on an empty stomach. The presence of food, specifically fat and protein, changes how the chlorogenic acids in coffee interact with your gastric lining. It buffers the impact. Third, eat within 1 to 2 hours of waking, not immediately upon waking. Give your stomach the water first and let it warm up, but not at noon either. The circadian biology is clear. Your metabolic machinery is most ready in the morning. Waiting until midday means eating when insulin sensitivity is declining and digestive enzyme output is falling. You're asking your systems to work at half capacity. When you do eat, build your meal around 3 things. Prebiotic soluble fiber. This is the single most important thing you can feed your gut bacteria. And the king of morning fiber sources is whole oats. Not instant oats, not flavored oat packets. Whole rolled oats or steel-cut oats. The beta-glucan fiber in oats has been studied more thoroughly than almost any other dietary fiber component. The FDA approved a heart health claim for oat beta-glucan in 1997 after reviewing substantial clinical evidence showing that it reduces LDL cholesterol through bile acid sequestration, moderates postprandial blood glucose, and feeds populations of lactobacillus and bifidobacterium in the gut. If you add chia seeds, which provide both soluble fiber and omega-3 fatty acids, and flax seeds, which contain lignans and additional soluble fiber, you are delivering a prebiotic substrate to your gut bacteria that sets up the butyrate-producing cascade for the entire day. Adequate protein. This one is where most people's breakfast fall apart. Your muscles are most receptive to amino acids in the morning fasting state. Muscle protein synthesis, the process by which your body builds and maintains muscle tissue, runs in cycles, and the morning window, after an overnight fast, is when your muscles are most ready to use incoming amino acids.
Dr. Douglas Pandon-Jones at the University of Texas Medical Branch has spent much of his career studying protein distribution and muscle protein synthesis, and his research consistently shows that distributing protein intake across 3 meals, including breakfast, results in significantly greater 24-hour muscle protein synthesis than concentrating it in 1 or 2 meals. Most people eat essentially no protein at breakfast and then try to eat 60 or 80 grams at dinner. Your body can't effectively use a massive protein bolus. About 25 to 40 grams per meal appears to be the functional range for maximally stimulating the synthesis process. Eggs are genuinely hard to beat for morning protein, not because of trend or marketing, but because of composition. 2 eggs provide about 12 to 14 grams of high-quality protein containing all 9 essential amino acids. They contain choline, which is critical for liver function and membrane health, and which the majority of Americans fall short on. They contain leucine, the amino acid most directly responsible for triggering the muscle protein synthesis signaling pathway, in amounts approaching the threshold shown in research to be effective. Pair them with Greek yogurt or cottage cheese, both rich in leucine-containing casein and whey, and you hit the 25-gram target easily. A fermented food. This is the piece that most people haven't gotten to yet, but the science on it is compelling. In 2021, researchers at Stanford published a clinical trial in Cell. Hannah Wastick, Gabriela Fragioticus, and senior authors Justin and Erica Sonnenberg, along with Christopher Gardner, 36 healthy adults were randomized to either a high-fiber diet or a high-fermented food diet for 10 weeks. The fermented food group, eating yogurt, kefir, fermented cottage cheese, kimchi, sauerkraut, and kombucha, showed a significant increase in overall microbiome diversity, with stronger effects from larger servings. They also showed decreases in 19 inflammatory proteins measured in their blood. 4 types of immune cells showed reduced activation. The high-fiber group did not show the same diversification, and participants in the fiber group with low baseline diversity showed increased inflammatory markers. The researchers were clear that these findings were preliminary and that more work is needed, but the signal is strong. Fermented foods appear to remodel the gut microbiome in ways that matter for immune function and inflammation, and the morning is a particularly opportune time for them. Plain Greek yogurt is the most accessible form. It provides protein, probiotic cultures, and fermented substrate, all in one.
Let me now put this all together as a complete morning sequence, because I think the order matters almost as much as the content. Wake up before your phone, before the coffee maker, before any decision about the day. Drink water. 1 glass, maybe 2, warm if you have it. This is non-negotiable from a biology standpoint, and it takes 3 minutes. Wait 30 to 45 minutes before coffee, ideally longer. Use that time for something. Morning light, movement, a short walk, whatever works for you. The point is to let your natural cortisol peak do its job without adding caffeine on top of it. Eat within the first 1 to 2 hours of waking. Not a massive meal, not a feast. A meal built around whole oats with chia seeds and flax seeds, 2 to 3 eggs, a portion of plain Greek yogurt, or some version of that structure. The principle is soluble fiber, adequate protein, probiotic or fermented element, minimal simple sugar. This is not complicated. These are not expensive foods, but they are directly aligned with what your digestive system is primed and ready for at that specific time of day. If you want coffee with breakfast, have it with the food, not before it on an empty stomach. The food buffer changes the interaction. A cortisol spike on top of a full, properly fed stomach is a very different thing from a cortisol spike on top of a fasting, acid-loaded, unprotected gut. Let me close with something that I think is worth saying directly. We have built an entire pharmaceutical industry around the downstream consequences of what happens when the human gut isn't supported well. Proton pump inhibitors, drugs that suppress stomach acid production, are consistently among the most prescribed medications on the planet. Millions of prescriptions for irritable bowel syndrome, for antibiotic-associated diarrhea, for bloating and gut dysbiosis. Some of those prescriptions are genuinely necessary. Some of those people have conditions that go beyond diet. I'm not suggesting that a bowl of oats is a substitute for real medical care.
But I do think it's worth asking how much of what we're treating with pharmaceuticals was created by a multi-decade pattern of pouring coffee into fasting, acidic, unprotected stomachs every morning, feeding the wrong populations in our gut microbiome with sugar and processed grain, and eating in ways that run directly against the circadian biology our digestive organs are designed to follow. Your gut has its own nervous system, somewhere between 200 and 500 million neurons lining your gastrointestinal tract. Dr. Michael Gerson at Columbia University spent decades documenting this and literally wrote the book on it called The Second Brain. Your gut has its own immune system. Your gut produces 90% of your serotonin. Your gut is carrying 38 trillion microorganisms that synthesize vitamins, regulate inflammation, and communicate directly with your brain via the vagus nerve. This is not a passive organ. It is a sophisticated, active communicating system, and every single morning in that first hour, you have a decision point, a recurring decision point that shows up 365 times a year. You can work with this system. Give it water, give it fiber, give it protein, give it time. Or you can work against it without knowing you're doing it. Most people have been working against it for years, not because they don't care, but because nobody showed them the biology. The extraordinary thing, and this is what I genuinely love about gut biology, is how fast the system responds when you start supporting it. Measurable shifts in microbiome composition have been documented in as little as 3 to 4 days of consistent dietary change. Not weeks, not months, days. Your gut is not holding a grudge. It is not waiting for you to pay off some long debt of bad breakfast before it starts functioning better. It responds to what you give it now. 3 days of better mornings. That's where this starts. So, tomorrow morning, when the alarm goes off and you're sitting on the edge of the bed deciding what your day is going to look like, before the phone, before the coffee, before any of it, remember that there's a system inside you that woke up with you, that's been waiting for you, that has 38 trillion residents who haven't eaten since last night. Give it water first. Everything else follows from there. I'd love to hear in the comments if you usually drink coffee before water, or if you're going to try this water-first approach tomorrow morning. Let me know how you feel. And if you found this explanation helpful, consider subscribing for more simple, science-based insights into your body, health, and morning habits.